Good morning, lovely viewers. Welcome to another exciting edition of Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This is the show where we put Ghana first in all of our conversation. It airs every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on Studios 2 Television on YouTube as well as on Facebook. Today on the show, media giant Aljazeera have emphatically refused to apologize to Ghana's President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo over content of its explosive investigative report, Gold Mafia, in which a key witness, Alistair Matthias, alleged many corruption-related matters to the name of the president. This morning, we get details of correspondence from Aljazeera to media houses here in Ghana, plus get expert legal opinion as to what real actions Ghana's president can take following this rather emphatic response from Aljazeera. And much later, journalists with Radio Dagbon attacked live on radio, live on air, as Ghana marked World Press Freedom Day in a case which perhaps paints a picture as to why Ghana in the last 4 years continues to drop in World Press Freedom Index. We'll get expert opinion for you and let you know exactly what the situation is for us here in Ghana. Details of these, if you stay with us here on Let's Talk Ghana, where we put Ghana first in all of our conversations. Stay with us. You're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. I am Eric Mawina Egbeta, your host for this program. And we're getting straight into the details now because Asian media giant, in fact, international media giant, Aljazeera, the investigative department of that media house, they have responded to a letter by the presidency demanding an apology over their documentary dubbed Gold Mafia, which amongst many other things had a key witness, Alistair Matthias, make damning allegations against the person and name of Ghana's President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. I'm going to show you the correspondence pretty shortly between Aljazeera and two media houses here in Ghana as to if they are going to apologize. But first, we're going to put back that statement on your screens, a statement from the presidency to Aljazeera, which was written on April 25, demanding that apology. And you can see on your screens now that statement from the presidency and written explicitly demanding an apology. That was the statement on the 25th of April, which Aljazeera now has confirmed receipt of and has subsequently responded to. Now let's get the responses. So two media houses in Ghana, Media General, TV3, and Joy FM or Multimedia Group wrote separately emails. They sent copious emails to the investigative department of Aljazeera asking first off if they had received the letter from Ghana's president and if they are going to apologize. Here first off is that letter from TV3's journalists to Aljazeera. That's on your screen right now. And you can see the demands they ask of Aljazeera in that letter. They, amongst many other things, ask if they've received, if they are going to render an apology as demanded by Ghana's president. And then now we can begin to see the responses. Then the responses are quite brief. That is coming on your screen now. Brief response. They've received it. They've written back to the presidency here in Ghana, clarifying portions of it, and while disagreeing with other elements as well in the response from in the letter rather from Ghana's presidency to them. And so they said that they've responded correcting some parts of the letter, that's the content, the letter to them, and then clarifying other portions which they believe doesn't quite make sense to the Ghanaian government. This was the response first off to TV3. In the Joy FM response, that is where they go emphatically stating that they are not going to apologize. And that's coming on your screens now. That comes on your screen now exactly. Mentioning again that they clarified content, and then they also explained portions of it, where they said they corrected portions of it as well. Then they go on to say, it's pretty short, they go on to say that they are not going to apologize and that they are not removing it from publication. That's the response of Al Jazeera to the presidency, demanding an apology. We know that the NDC, they've called on the special prosecutor to investigate the claims made by Alyssa Matthias, as it is evidence that he has a company here which operates. And so that's the position of the NDC. The government has written, now Al Jazeera has responded. We're going on the telephone now, speaking to a private legal practitioner and a law lecturer, Vitus Bang, on what he makes of this response, and really also gets a legal education as to if there are available next steps for Ghana's president. And so, Mr. Bang, many thanks for speaking to us this morning. First off, what real actions or who can be liable in this instance? The presidency writing to them, they responding and stating quite clearly that they are not going to apologize.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. The president of Ghana, in his private capacity, if he feels that he has been defamed, he may have a cause of action against Al Jazeera for the so-called defamatory statement. However, no one rushes to court. Definitely, the president, who himself is a renowned lawyer and who has a lot of good lawyers advising him, I believe he will have an introspection and see whether a legal action can be mounted against Al Jazeera for the so-called defamatory statements. It is also the case that in even a defamation suit, truth is a defense.
Right.
So that if the so-called defamatory statement about the president happens to be the truth, he being alleged to be the lawyer of the gentleman in question, Alyssa Matthias, if that is true, then that may be a defense to Al Jazeera. And in any case, I don't think that if the president is going to pursue this matter, the Republic of Ghana is going to be involved at all. And so I don't see the Attorney General coming in and acting as lawyer for the president.
I brought in the Attorney General because the former Special Prosecutor, Martin Amidou, he's been commenting on the demand by the president for a retraction and an apology, stating that the person that was defamed was not just Akufo-Addo, but the presidency as a whole. And as such, if action will be taken, it shouldn't be the president's lawyer taking the action, but the Attorney General taking the action on behalf of the presidency.
All right. On the issue of defamation, a number of elements have to be established, including that a so-called defamatory statement has been made about a person, and that there's no justification for the statement or the defamatory statement. So, with all due respect, a person who is suing for defamation must show that he or she has a reputation, and that the reputation has been solid. In other words, right-thinking members of the linguistic society in which the language was spoken now sees the person in another light, treats the person with scorn, contempt, and what have you. So if you want to refer to this defamatory matter as being the office of the president, I am, with all due respect, I am not too sure how likely that will be successful in a lawsuit. I would rather see an individual who claims that of course, that he has a reputation, and two, that the reputation has been solid or marred by a so-called defamatory publication. And so I see that the president, in his private capacity, may be the one. Of course, there may be some diplomatic issues here and there because the Republic's name has been marred to some extent. But I do not think that the action that the Republic will have against Al Jazeera would be an action in defamation against the said media giant.
But just, I know that you have to leave, but just the entire subject of conversation, the request for an apology and then this refusal. I mean, we as journalists offer individuals who are named in an investigative piece or even any ordinary story the opportunity to respond. Al Jazeera seems to be quite clear on this, that they gave the president a right of response, that's one, and that even the claims made by the presidency in that letter demanding an apology are not accurate, and that they've clarified those claims, and as such they see no need for an apology. Can that wash? And these are just figurative, really, if the president decides to take the matter up.
Thank you again. The thing is that you and I do not have, are not privy to the content of the letter from Al Jazeera responding to the president's letter demanding for an apology. So not knowing the content of that letter, it may be difficult. But if you look at the posture of Al Jazeera, one would think that they seem to be standing on something. Of course, a giant media organization such as that, they also have access to very good legal advice. So I'm sure that they know what their rights and possible liabilities may be relative to the statements that they published. So for them to say that they are not more or less willing to apologize, it means that they probably have some other information that you and I do not have. And the president will be so advised if he thinks that he will not have a course of action.
Just to read responses to two media houses, because two media houses sought explanation. TV3, Joy FM as well wrote to Al Jazeera asking if they were going to apologize and if they had responded. I'm just going to read this one from Al Jazeera to Joy FM, where they stated in the response to Joy that we have responded to the letter from the President's office correcting some part of its content and clarifying various points. Since the documentary did not actually allege what the President's office has suggested it did, we will not be apologizing or removing it from publication. That's the response. When, as media persons, we asked if they were going to render an apology, they gave to us.
Yeah. So that shows clearly their intention not to apologize. They do not intend to apologize to the president for the so-called publication. So I think the ball is now in the court of the president. If he thinks that he's likely to succeed in a course of action, against the media giant, then he will be so advised. But I think that he may not pursue it after all. He may not pursue it after all.
Counsel, I appreciate that you could speak to us.
The pleasure is mine.
Right then.
Thank you.
It is us, lawyer Vitus Ban. He's also a law lecturer speaking to us this morning here on Let's Talk Ghana on Studios 2 television. I mentioned in that interaction the statement from the former special prosecutor Martin Amidu in relation to this particular development. We'll just go through his portion or his statement as well, just briefly, as well as of adding up to the story. And so that statement is coming on your screens now. And Martin Amidu, in concluding that statement, says that the presidential oath of office reinforces and affirms the demands and injunctions of the 1992 Constitution. He says that the attempt by the government to escape an investigation for suspected corruption arising from the confessions of Alistair Matthias, the president's good friend, contained in the Al Jazeera Gold Mafia documentary through the side door of a purported threat of an action for defamation is arbitrary, lacks candor, and constitutes a blatant abuse of the powers of government under the Constitution. That's Martin Amidu there. He has quite clearly put it that the president is trying to escape through the back door legal action or prosecution as a result of the claims made by Alyssa Matthias in that explosive investigative piece. We're going for a break now here on Let's Talk Ghana. And when we return, Ghana has been sinking for the last 4 years in the World Press Freedom Index. Well, on Wednesday, when we join the rest of the world to celebrate International Press Day, there was another action that will further sink us. We'll get into that when we return from this break. Stay with us. You're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This show airs every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on this channel on YouTube as well as on Facebook. We're going next into the other conversation, and I mentioned bits and pieces of it to you before we went on that break, and that is Ghana continuously dropping in the World Press Freedom Index. The latest report by Reporters Without Borders has indicated a 2 places drop by Ghana on the world ranking. We've dropped from 60th to 62nd, and that makes it 4 successive years since Ghana began to drop from a place around the 30th region. Now we are at 62nd position. As a result, they mention intimidation and a lack of acceptance of criticism by the Ghanaian government, resulting in self-censorship by media persons. Then they, amongst many other things, raise a lack of clarity in terms of media ownership, poor remuneration to journalists, and the likes are some of the bases on which reason were dropping. But most importantly is attacks on journalists and a lack of criticism, acceptance of criticism on the part of government and its associates, resulting in self-censorship of media persons in this country. To add insult to injury, particularly for media persons, on Wednesday, when Ghana joined the rest of the world to mark International Press Freedom Day, a journalist in the northern part of the country, Radio Dagbon, Sadiq Abubakar, whilst on air, was attacked on World Press Freedom Day. I'll take a pause here and just show a video, because that show was live on Facebook, and just show a video of exactly what it is that happened on Radio Dagbon when Sadiq Abubakar was hosting the program.
So, Karniela, first service in Kamna. First service in Kamna. I no,
Subhanallah. Ya atin din zo na zo an ciwo. Nkon na wo. Yaman wala ka nyira boy. Na zo anu zo. Yaman wala. Anu zo so. Bo garu. Dukula ci ko on ne o yulgi na anu wala. Zo ba ka gar. Dukula ci ko ne ayaman. Fon na a boren gar gina ci. Ona ma ta no so mi no to fa. Garna. Garna ka fa. Fon na ba ma ba. Na zo ono ci ba so no. Ya ko ka so try. No ti ba ka so try ma. Ya on ka ya on this ola. We are not. Tima can so try ma. Tima, I can't dig my. I can't give her. Gagati, Jim Jam, something. All over. Gagati, all over. No, Gagati. Try ma. Put that try. And that's one thing. I can't do it. Can you touch your man? The young man. Stupid thing. Try. I'm pretty sure I'm sorry. Subhanallah. What's wrong with you? You mess up, man. Touch Ira.
So that's the 2 minutes video, essentially telling the entire story of media attacks here in Ghana. And it was attacked by the immediate past Deputy Northern Regional Director of Communications for the opposition, NDC. And the indication we get now is that the matter has been reported to the police, and this immediate past Deputy Communications Director of the NDC is yet to even report to the police station. Let's hear from the journalist himself. He spoke to a reporter in the northern part of the country who works with multimedia as to exactly what transpired and whether or not he's reported the matter to the police. Let's take a listen to his account of the happenings, and then we return and then speak to the Media Foundation for West Africa, because it is quite an eyesore as to exactly what's happening and on World Press Freedom Day. But let's listen to Sadiq Abubakar tell his version of the story.
Before I started the show, I played a tape in which he mentioned me in a sister station. So I said, no, this guy is not worth commenting on. I will not comment on his tape because he seemed not to be credible. So such people, I don't want to discuss them on my show. That was just it, and I dropped the tape, and we moved on to our other topics that we plan discussing. So I was discussing with my panel. All of a sudden, I saw them move into the studio. Immediately they came straight to me to do the attack.
How did this happen? Don't you have security at your premises?
Yes, there's security. And after the incident, I started finding out from the security why he allowed them in. And according to him, he moved to the washroom. And when he saw them, he thought because the guys had always come to the studio for programs, so he thought yesterday was one of those days, only for him to realize that he has moved in to do something different.
Has the matter been reported to the police?
Yes, even we are currently at the police station.
And what is the police saying?
The police said he invited him, so they are waiting for him to come.
So that's the journalist Sadiq Abubakar speaking there. Muhib Saeed is Programs Officer of Freedom of Expression of the Media Foundation for West Africa. He's joined us this morning for a reaction to this development now. Let's speak to Muhib. Muhib, many thanks for speaking to us. First off, your thoughts on this action on a journalist who was live on air on World Press Freedom Day, when Ghana was joining the rest of the world to mark this day?
Well, I think it's a very unfortunate incident, and one that evokes very dismal memories of a similar incident in 2018, just a day after Ghana had hosted the World Press Freedom Day. A journalist from the multimedia group Ohima Sichua was assaulted by an MPP vigilante by name Hajia Fati Seydu. And this is a very sad throwback to that incident. Secondly, it is the third such invasion of a radio station in a little over 1 year in Ghana. In January, some thugs attacked Radio Dagbon in the Dagbon district of the Greater Accra region.
Right.
And that was repeated somewhere in May on a radio station in the central region called Benya FM. So this is the third incident in a little over 1 year, and it doesn't speak well of us, especially at a time that we're supposed to be mourning and taking stock of the dismal performance of Ghana as far as the RSF ranking is concerned.
Do you think enough is being done? We've had the government successively continue to make the case that it is doing enough. The Information Ministry says it's set up forums and the likes to protect journalists against such forms of abuse and the likes. You think these actions from the government is enough, or we need to see more, not just on the part of the government?
Well, I think our government is in denial of the fact that press freedom is deteriorating in Ghana. If you remember, at the last stage of the nation address in March, the president was extolling the virtues of Ghana as far as press freedom is concerned, and even said that press freedom has reached such heights that even diplomats are encouraged to speak about internal matters. He was clearly in denial,
Right.
because when the British High Commissioner tweeted about the arrest of Oliver Barker-Vormawor,
Yeah.
we all saw the reprimand from the IGP. So for the president to say that press freedom is consecrated in Ghana to the extent that diplomats can freely join our internal discourse was a case of not facing reality. Again, you would realize that it is because of lack of accountability for the previous attacks that I mentioned that this incident has also happened. So we'll call on the states to admit that things are getting out of hand and to take steps to ensure that such attacks are, the perpetrators of such attacks are punished. But let me also say that this incident is a big indictment on the management of the radio station that is Radio Dagbon.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, for someone to gain easy and hindered access to your studio and assault a presenter is a mark of negligence.
Well, the defense...
We think that they can do better next time.
The defense from them is that this said individual is a regular pundit on the show. As such, even the security only thought that he was returning as one of the panelists on the morning show, and so didn't take it quite seriously until the attack happened.
Well, I think that they took things for granted, and what has happened should teach them not to be so complacent next time.
Right.
Because if he is not really built to appear on a program, at least someone should go and inform the producer that so and so person, although not invited, is coming. Is he welcome?
Right.
And people should actually be ushered into the studio properly.
Right.
So that if there was someone that ushered him in, at least that person would have given the alarm quickly enough for rescue to come to the journalist.
Just finally, the case has been reported to the police. Indications we get is that the abuser, in this case, a former deputy communications member of the NDC in the northern region, is yet to report to the police after the case was reported. What will be the expectation of the police on this particular matter?
Well, I think the police should seize this opportunity to demonstrate that they do not condone criminal behavior. And I would also urge the management of the station to follow up and ensure that the matter is pursued to its logical conclusion.
Right then, Muhid, I appreciate that you could speak to us.
You're welcome.
That's Muhid Saeed. He is Senior Program Officer for Freedom of Expression with the Media Foundation for West Africa, speaking to us this morning here on Studios 2 Television's Let's Talk Ghana. We'll end today's edition of the program here, but we cannot do that without providing you latest updates as well on the 36-page report by Professor Frimpong Boateng. Earlier in the week, we mentioned to you that the special prosecutor had hinted of his intent to investigate. Now he's written to Professor Frimpong Boateng asking him to be a key witness in investigations that he will be carrying out. Professor Frimpong Boateng has responded and said that he's ever willing to be a part of the investigations, and so that sets the tone for us. And like you heard Vitus Azim mention on Wednesday, the expectation is that this can be done as quickly as possible to calm the nerves of anti-graft watchers. And so it sets the tone really for what can and what should be a quick and steady investigation by the special prosecutor, Kissie Jabin. That's our show for today. I am Eric Mawina Egbet. As always, we would love to hear from you. Leave a message for us in the comment section below on YouTube as well as on Facebook. We'll return on Monday with another exciting edition of the show. Do keep safe.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.